Do you ever struggle finding motivated sellers? If you do, you won't after this episode. We're going to talk about a niche that has over 12,000 people per day entering the stage of motivated seller. And we talk about how you can earn as much as $5,000 to $10,000 per referral. If you haven't guessed it yet, we're talking about the Silver Tsunami of seniors. By the way, if you haven't already, be sure to pick up a copy of my book, More Leads, More Deals, More Profits.
Calling all real estate investors. Are you ready to get off the real estate income roller coaster and learn the proven lead generation strategies the experts are using to consistently generate profitable real estate deals? Then you're in the right place. This is More Leads, More Deals, More Profits with your host, Mark Lane. Let's get started.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. I have got a very special guest today. I would say he is the leader in the field of the niche of seniors. You know, in my book and some of these podcasts, we talk about different niches and the importance that they play. Phillip Vincent, to my knowledge, is leading the pack when it comes to the niche of working with seniors. So super happy to have you, Phillip, and welcome to the show.
Mark, thank you for having me on your podcast today. I hope to share a lot of really good information where people kind of take away and go, okay, I learned something today.
Absolutely. Well, so I'm going to kind of give you the floor. If you could just kind of walk us down the path of how you found this niche, and then we'll kind of go into the next steps of how you're working it now.
Sure. 46 years old. I've been in this business since I was 20. I built my first house when I was 20 years old. So I'm not going to bore you guys with a 26-year-long story. But the point of that is I started off in development and worked my way back to wholesaling. And so I've tried every type of marketing under the sun. It's one of my favorite subjects. If you guys have a better lead source than what you hear about today, please let me know because I'll do it in my own local market of St. Louis. I'm still an active investor. And so the journey, I was doing things like driving for dollars and wholesaling before I even knew what those things were. I'm talking the early 2000s, just because I enjoyed looking at houses. I'd always find the worst house on the street and try to get it to a builder or something like that. During the downturn, everybody started getting into foreclosures. And even today, people say, oh, you're a flipper. Oh, you deal with foreclosures. And, we both know that's not our bread and butter. That's not where our business is. Not enough foreclosures out there to go around. And so living through the downturn, I was always looking at where is the source? Mark, if me and you were hanging out today in person, we'd be talking about this subject anyway, right? Today, we're just doing it on your podcast. We'd be like, where is the best source of leads? Right. And I always start to look at the stereotype. I like stereotypes sometimes because in stereotypes there's truth. And I would say, who's the best seller? Who's the person that I like to work with? What's going on in their lives? The human side, not the bricks and sticks, right? We're always looking for houses where they need to sell, they have equity, a house we can add value to, all those things. Of course, that's what we need. But what's going on in their lives? And so I started to realize around 2011 that these people, a lot of times they were the adult children helping their parents. Either they had passed away or they're moving into senior living. And the senior living one was really intriguing to me because it was very different than like a probate lead. With probate, if Mark and Phillip are brothers and our parents pass, now you and I are going to fight for every dollar because it's our inheritance. But when we're helping mom move into senior living, we're kind of just trying to get it figured out, get it settled, get that money in the bank account to pay for the care. And so the adult children, you and I in this case, would not be getting that money because it's mom's money. She's still with us. She's paying for care. And that was interesting to me. And so then when I went to senior living, Mark, I'm going to tell you something right now. This is a $300 billion industry that doesn't have their stuff together. They really don't. They're in the care business is what they'll tell you. And they truly are in the care business, but they're actually in the real estate business. They replace the real estate that they live in now, their forever home, and sell them a new home. Well, what's stopping them from moving in? It's that old home. It's mom's house. And what's crazy, if I can give you an analogy that I think will sum this up very easily, is that senior living is like a car dealership if the car dealership didn't buy the trade-in. And so what I mean by that is very simply, think right now if car dealerships stopped buying the trade-in today, would people still buy new cars? Sure, they would. Would it slow the entire process down tremendously? Yes. Because you show up, they buy your old car, now you can get the new car. Senior living has decided that's somebody else's issue. In fact, Mark, I hear it all the time. They say people will come in, they spend millions of dollars a month on having people come do tours, only to say, Now go find somebody to buy that house or list that house, or they push them right back out the door with their biggest problem. They're selling housing, but yet they don't help them with the housing.
Right.
So for me, Mark, today I don't want them to fix this problem. I feel like that is the niche that we're going to talk about today, guys. If I can be so bold over the next 20 years, we're not waiting for the silver tsunami to get here. It's here now. And for the next 20 years, it's going to grow 12,000 people a day. This is where the inventory is going to come from for the next 2 decades.
Phillip, I know what the silver tsunami is, but can you explain that just a little bit for anybody that's listening and they don't quite understand that terminology?
Yeah, you've got your silent generation. There's about 20 million left of that generation. Then you've got your boomers. By the year 2035, we're going to be over 100 million people in the United States over the age of 65. The first time our country will be older. There'll be more people over 65 than there is under 18, which is actually pretty hard on a country. We won't have time to talk about that today, but these boomers and their parents have equity. In fact, they're sitting on $30 trillion in equity. That's 12 zeros if you're keeping track at home. 30 trillion in equity, and they're going to be, this misnomer of the transfer of wealth. Mark, I truly don't believe you and I are going to inherit that wealth. It's going to go to our parents who are living longer, who have a little more bougie lifestyle. They're used to some nice things, and they're going to tap that equity and use that equity to live out the best of their life, which I think they should. And so to answer your question, the tsunami, there's 12,000 people a day in our country turning 65 every day, and will be for the next 15 years.
Yeah, agree. Huge opportunity. So like in my book, more leads, more deals, more profits. I talk about specializing in a niche. Like most people, when they go out there, they're just like, they're in how do I find a deal type mode, right? Rather than identifying a niche to serve and to specialize in. And I think that, when we can identify a niche, especially in the beginning, because we don't have our marketing budget built up, we don't have all those things in our favor. And so identifying a niche that we can really focus on and serve is the step that people are missing. And because everybody's going out trying to serve the market as like, I'm going to try to be the business that serves everybody. And you can't serve everybody. There's too much out there. Whereas when you identify a niche and you become the key person in the market for that niche, it's game over. So talk a little bit about, I guess how a person would kind of step into that role when it comes to working with seniors.
Yeah, it's a great question. And the niche is where you should focus. I mean, let's just talk about niches for half a second here. You can work first-time home buyers. A lot of people who get started in real estate as agents, they become first-time home buyer representatives, and you realize how hard that is, right? They get beat out a lot. There's always a father-in-law's opinion of the house. You could work divorced, people getting split up. I just never liked working with divorced people because there always seems to be a little bit bitter on both ends. With seniors, though, what I've noticed is that everybody seems to be kind of trying to work together. Is it hard? Sure, Mark. It's definitely a hard business. It's very emotional. And I take great pride in getting to buy their forever home. There's so much to like about senior living is what's going on in the family's lives. They've already been told by a doctor that they have to move.
Yeah.
So I don't have to give them motivation, right? They're pre-motivated. They get to me with their hand up saying, I need to sell, not want to sell.
Yeah. Or their adult children are kind of forcing them to. They're saying like, we can't keep taking care of you. You're falling down. Like these things are happening. We have to get you out of the house.
We have to. Right. And so now they're in the we need help mode. And so what do they need help with? It's finding the right care. Mark, I didn't ask you this before. Do you know what the referral and placement business is in senior living? Have you heard of that?
I know. I think I know what you're referencing.
There's this $1 billion industry of people getting paid to bring someone, connect them to the care home.
Okay.
And it's where I think where things are headed is there's some franchises out there. They're great. They're $100,000 to buy into those, but there's this whole entire wave that's coming. You don't have to get licensed to do this. If you know how to connect someone, you can get paid $10,000 for connecting Bob to the new care home.
Really?
And I think
so who pays them? Is it the care home that pays, or is it
happily, Mark? Because there's this fancy word called census, which just means occupancy. I mean, think about what a senior living community is. It's really a big multifamily building with a ton of overhead, right?
Yeah.
But yet they have a front door open and a back door open, and they get to capture that revenue during that middle. And so they pay happily 1 month's rent for you to bring them somebody. And a lot of these places are $10,000, $12,000 a month, and they pay that because we're basically the sales force. So, we're talking about lead aggregation today, guys. And so when you work in seniors, we're with seniors, they need to sell that forever home, the one they bought in 1978, and they've owned it forever. And they're not buying a new house, so there's no buyer's agency, like an agent thinks. But there is this called the referral and placement business. So you could get the listing, or you could buy it as is, and you can help a family find the right care, and you get paid both ways. And I think that's what's really exciting about Mom's House is we're really focusing on three things. Where will mom and dad get the best care, which is the placement business? What do we do with the house? What do we do with the stuff? The stuff a lot of times stops them from selling because they say, got 2,000 square feet, I'm moving to a 600 square foot apartment. What do I do with all this stuff? And especially that generation, their identity is their tchotchkes. And it's really hard to break away from some of that. And so you asked how to break into this. So in my opinion, and with any business, can you start with a give? Can you start with a value? It seems like I'm going to talk, I have a license, so I can talk about agents. We're a little funny about, here's a card, like we do this thing where everybody just gets a card and we think that's networking. Right. I don't think that's true. It's like they're always looking for what's in it for them, but you need to be looking at what's in it for the other person, not yourself.
Right.
And exactly. And senior living, once they know you care, Mark, they will bring you deals all the time, because the people in senior living are working with these families every single day that need to unlock their equity for care. And once they trust you, I always give this analogy of Bob. He's an executive director at a senior living community. Let's say he just brings you 3 deals a year. So not a lot. I could be a lot more aggressive than that. But just 3 a year. Yep. What's the average wholesale fee in the country right now, Mark, in your opinion?
15,000 maybe?
15, exactly what I was thinking too. So if Bob brings you 3 deals a year, he's worth $45,000 a year to you. Let's say he brings you 3 placements, maybe they're only $5,000 a piece. Well, now we're up to $60,000. Well, but you're going to have that relationship for the next decade.
Yeah.
Because people in senior living don't leave senior living. So if you had one Bob and he brought you $600,000 in revenue, how many Bobs do you want to build? You don't need 100 of them. Right. I teach this thing as 20 is plenty. And what I mean by that is if you have 20 people in senior living that are constantly talking to daughter Judy, which is the adult child. When I say adult child, guys, by the way, she might be 65, dealing with her 85-year-old parent, but she's helping make those decisions like Mark said earlier. And so those people, they bring me, they're the golden goose, but the golden eggs is daughter Judy. They bring me Judy's all the time, said, hey, Judy's only going to be in town this weekend. She has to fly back to Cincinnati. Can you go meet with her? They need to sell their house so they can pay for care. And that's the thing. You got to, it's a lot of transactional. If you guys are very transactional, this is going to be a harder business. If you have some empathy in you, then this will be a little bit easier.
Yeah. That's in my book. I talk a lot about, like we said, the niche that you serve, right? It's not about like we have to get away from, we don't have to, like there will always be the investors out there that they're fully focused on just the money. Like, how many deals can they buy? How much money can they make? But when we start focusing on I like to call it like our ideal customer avatar, like in this case it's seniors. But when we find our ideal customer avatar and we focus on serving them to the best of our ability, it completely changes our business and it changes how they view us as an investor. Suddenly we're not viewed as somebody that's just trying to steal the house. Instead, we're viewed as somebody that's providing a service to them.
That's right. And my goal is to try to see how much I can pay for the house.
Yeah.
I want to see how much I can pay them for the house, still running a profitable business.
Right.
And the way you do that is by supplying them with so many other things that they need. It's a really emotional time to move mom into senior living. Yeah. To take the keys away, to say, Mom, you have to move now. That's not an easy thing. In fact, it's one of the hardest things families go through. And that daughter, Judy, we keep referencing, she's got a brother that lives 5 states away. She's got a sister in town that never helps with anything. She's burned all of her paid time off. She's her husband. She's married still. Her husband's like, when are you coming back home? I miss you. Who's helping with the kids? All these things. Like they need their life to go back to quote unquote normal. And probably the last thing they want to do in that moment, Mark, is when they meet the agent and they're like, hey, to get top dollar, we need to rehab this house. And they're like, I don't have time to take a shower, let alone do a rehab on mom's house, And so, and by the way, guys, I hate putting blanket answers on something so gigantic. A lot of times, if the house is in great condition or it's newer, then we can just help them list it, right? We can just help that retail sale. But a lot of times with mom's house type houses or seniors houses, they're clean, but they're a little bit dated. And that's where we come in because we want to add value to a house as investors.
I literally just put one under contract this last weekend. Almost everything you just described is the scenario outside of living out of town. but she's got a sister that's not helping. She's got a husband that's at home. Meaning the mom, daughter Judy, she's probably late 50s, 60 years old, not in the greatest health. And her mom left a 2,000 square foot house absolutely full. And this poor lady is doing it all on her own. We're talking packing everything. She's gone through 4 dumpsters now, filling it up. And her mom's in memory care. And so it's a matter of trying to get the most out of the house so she can continue paying for her mom's memory care for the foreseeable future. So it's exactly what you described.
So Mark, I want to say something too. People say, Phil, what a great little niche you have there. But that story you just told and that story I've told, it's millions of times over the next decade, guys. That exact story is going to happen millions of times over the next decade.
Well, and what I've encountered is that, like, we don't even necessarily market to seniors now. We used to, but we don't now. But we market to a large chunk of we do a lot of mail. We do some other marketing. And even though we're not focusing on seniors as a niche, I would still say there's probably, I don't know, it's got to be over 60 to 70% of our sellers are seniors. Now, either they're either one moving into some type of senior care, or they're moving into like independent living, but they're still seniors that are transitioning to the next chapter of their life. What I've found is that when it's the daughter Judy that's trying to sell the house, they care about the equity because they care about their parents and they want to get them the most that they can. Whereas when it's the actual seller that's selling the house, they don't care as much about their equity. They're focused on their comfort, and they're focused on, like, I just want to sell the house. I want to relocate. I want to buy the RV. Like, I want to start traveling more. They just want comfort and to move on to the next chapter.
Convenience.
Yep.
Yeah, the daughter Judy has to do what I call the morbid death math. It's hard. If we all knew when we were going to pass, it would be a lot easier to plan, and we don't. Right. And the level of care, as you said, that lady was in, sounds like memory care. That's one of the expensive ones. I mean, it could be $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
That, even if you have some wealth, that's going to go away pretty quickly. There is some math out there. The average person stays in senior living 21 months. It used to be about 28 pre-COVID. And so independent can be easily average over 3 years. But then as you get into assisted, it's closer to 24 months. And then memory care and what's called skilled is actually 9 to 12 months. Yeah. And so if it's $10,000 a month and you need 12 months, you basically need 120,000 is the average. Now, of course, guys, everybody can pass away in 1 month or 5 years, but that's how averages get here. And so our job as experts is to help them kind of do that math on to be ready. And, just yesterday I was on one of my live with students and things talking about this situation of having the hard conversation early, and the problem boomers are going to have, Mark, and all of us are, we're used to a bougie lifestyle. We don't want to step down. Yet, if they just had a place that was $6,000 a month instead of 12, they could live twice as long on that money. And it's going to be interesting to see what boomers do over the next 2 decades. I honestly think they're going to steal as much, not steal, it's their equity. They're going to take as much equity out of their own home to fund in-home healthcare for as long as possible in that McMansion, because they don't want to give up that dream.
Yeah.
Even though they shouldn't do that, that's what they're going to do. In fact, have you heard of this term called home equity agreements yet? Have you heard of this?
No. Home
equity agreements are going to be gigantic. They're a mortgage. They're like a reverse mortgage, except for here's why Americans are going to get in trouble with it. Mark my words, in 10 years, when all the lawsuits start flying, it's because of this moment. Hedge funds have realized, why buy a $500,000 house that we own? We have to pay taxes. We have to find a renter. We have to rehab it. Ugh, that's bulky. They would rather buy 20% of 5 $500,000 houses for $100,000 a piece, and they hand you a check for $100,000. And guess what the payment is every month, Mark, on that $100,000? Zero. Oh my gosh, free money. Is anything in life free? No, but Americans we're silly sometimes, right? It's not a free lunch. So they get that check for $100,000. Now I can go to Italy. Now I can pay for in-home healthcare that's $35 an hour. Now I can pay for my granddaughter's car. Once they get a taste of that money with no payment, they're going to keep doing it. Each time these home equity agreements takes a little chunk and a little chunk gets bigger, the equity gets bigger. What's going to happen is they always have a first right of refusal to buy the house. And so
right.
How we sell our houses right now today is going to change. It's changing right now. And guys, I hope that's exciting to you. I also think I have a pretty big thought about this. I believe housing and healthcare will become the same thing.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So just like a Section 8 voucher or food stamps or any of these government programs, they're going to shove housing into healthcare to be subsidized by the healthcare Medicaid, because Medicaid, by the way, which won't pay for your long-term care, they're never going to build enough communities to take care of the Silver Tsunami. So they're going to heavily subsidize keeping people in houses that are already out there. And so I believe instead of getting a Section 8 check, you're going to get a Medicaid, or what's called CMS. You're going to get a CMS check for all the renters in your properties. So guys like you and I mean, that's probably great. It's probably a great thing. I'd rather have a senior in my house who's not beating the place up and a guaranteed check. I mean, all those things just seem like the future of where this business is headed.
Yeah, that's it's one of the questions I asked towards the end. Of where do you see the future of like lead generation going? But even not considering lead generation, just talking future of housing, future of real estate. There's changes coming, and I think being like, I love talking to people like you that have some foresight on, especially like even if it's just a niche, you have some foresight on some changes coming. So it's great to kind of like be prepared to start thinking about that and just maybe start repositioning ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, and so what you hear things like this, you're like, great, what can I do with that information? Owning rentals should be everyone's goal on this podcast, right? Everyone is listening. We should have things that offset our tax liability, and so owning rentals and just owning real estate in general is a great way. There's something called the sell and stay model, which is basically, let's not get into it. It's really simple. You buy the house as if it's a rental, and you rent it back to the person that lives there.
Yeah,
and I think that also has a big future, because as people start to dip into their equity, they don't want to leave the house, but they need money for in-home health care. So if you just bought the house completely, then that's also an option as well.
Yeah, we did one of those end of last year. Couple, they were having medical issues. They had some medical debt, and their home equity was the only thing that they could use to solve it. And so they sold us the house in order to get equity out of the house to pay their medical debt. But they loved their house; they wanted to stay there. They kept it in pristine condition. I'm like, this is the dream transaction right here. They're gonna take perfect care of it. They've already done tons of updates. They like home ownership. They like working on their home, and they're going to continue updating it and fixing it on their own dime. Like, that is the perfect tenant.
Let's be clear about that for everyone listening. If they're a hoarder, I don't know if I would do that as easily.
Exactly.
What Mark just said is the perfect thing. How they treat that house for the past 30 years is probably how they'll treat it for the next 10. And so, but if they don't treat it good, I don't know if I'd do that as easily as far as keeping them in the house. Just a word to the wise.
We've had people ask for like rent backs, and we'll be like, if they don't show promise of being a good tenant, I'm like, well, that's where we'll define a little bit of a deadline. It might be 3 months or something like that, but we don't want them in there long term.
That's right.
So Phillip, how can the listeners start taking action with this? Like if they decide they want to start specializing in this niche of seniors, what actions can they take? What steps can they take?
For me, it's awareness. Senior living has its own language, and most investors will think I can just walk in the front door and wing it. And they're going to know you're not a wolf in sheep's clothing. I don't mean it that way. They're just going to know you're on the outside. And I think if you take this time to learn this business, it'll pay off in droves for you. I mean, it's a strong business because that is where the inventory comes from. So you guys, as a lead aggregation podcast, right, instead of finding daughter Judy who might live 200 miles away, I don't think anyone has the marketing budget to send direct mail out to the whole world, right, and hoping that you're going to catch the right person for your local market. So wait till they get to Judy, or the senior gets to senior living. Now they've raised their hand, and it's the flashpoint of them saying, hey, we need to sell the house to pay for care. And if you wait for that moment, now you're only working with people who need your service versus people who are like, we're thinking about it, right? And so that flashpoint, I think, is a really good place to be, because we know your close rate should be higher because every at bat should be a person that needs to sell. That's a big difference. And so awareness, I also think too, start visiting your local communities. There's this misconception of what, everybody calls it nursing home. Well, they don't really even use that word anymore. That's a free one for everyone. Is the word nursing home is what the lay person calls it, and they don't call it that in senior living anymore.
Okay.
So we don't call it nursing homes there. If you walk in talking about nursing homes, they'll know you're on the outside anyway. And so get aware, go do a tour. Guys, these communities are being built everywhere. They're hiding in plain sight. They look like ski lodges, half of them, and they're gorgeous buildings. They would love to take you on a tour. They'll make you some cookies. They'll take you. I mean, go get familiar with these and understand how big this market is. A wise man once told me, you're going to work in senior living whether you want to or not, so you might as well embrace it. And so I think that's funny because that's how big. I mean, what is a tsunami, guys? It's such a big wave. It takes out everything in its path. So either get in line with the wave or have it, take us out.
So if the listeners are interested in, let's say they want to go in, they do a tour, or let's take it back to the placement agency. Like if they're saying, well, I want to start, that sounds like some pretty low hanging fruit. How can I start getting paid without necessarily even having to do deals? Who at these facilities, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but who at the facilities should they be talking to in order to start building that relationship?
Yeah, there's probably 50 job titles there. Anyone that has the ear of daughter Judy. So move-in coordinators, executive directors, financial planners, the proprietor, if they're available. A lot of times they're not. Activities directors, anyone that's having conversations with the family.
Okay.
Where some people, like other jobs, they're not having the hard conversations with the family. I mean, think about the term move-in coordinator. Guys, they're can't get a better job title than that. They're helping them. Oh, what are we coordinating? All your stuff from your old house coming here, and all. That person can hand you gold all day long.
Is there anything special that we can do as far as building that relationship to where we start getting a little bit more frequent referrals from them?
Yeah, for me, it's starting with a give. And so these communities do cold outreach to the communities or to their email list. They'll send postcards. They'll do all these things and say, all of it is designed to get people to come do a tour. They want the community to come do a tour. And so they put on these seminars. And so Mark, if I was in your city, I would get my local estate planning attorney. I'd get a downsizing person. Myself, maybe an SRES agent or something like that. We would come as a panel and we would give a presentation, even 15 minutes a piece, you can kind of get your point across. And guys, yes, seniors will be there, and yes, you might get some business for it, but that's not the reason why you do it. It's to build relationships with those people behind the walls in the community, because, I'll give you guys $1 million sentence right now. It's, hey, Cindy, executive director, do you ever have a situation where they want to move mom in, but they can't until they get the house sold? It's usually met with a laugh. They're like, yeah, every day we deal with that here, every single day. There's this book too, by the way. It's called It's About Time. It was written by David A. Smith. And he talks about the 3 biggest things that senior living cares about. And it's converting as many prospects into clients as possible, minimizing the discounts given, and increasing the length of stay. And Mom's House, what we teach people to be, is a census conversion tool that helps fix all 3 of those problems. And we do that by getting rid of the roadblocks that's stopping the industry. We're buying the trade-in, Mark, right? If I could be the home trade-in guarantee for senior living, that's kind of my dream here, is what we're doing. Okay.
Awesome. Well, let's kind of start wrapping up. But Phillip, how can people connect with you? I know that you've got such a good hold on this market. I haven't talked to anybody that knows what's going on with senior housing, especially on the house side of it, as well as you do. How can they connect with you and learn a little bit more?
Yeah, so momshouse.com is a great place to start. If you want to, like on Instagram, phillip.vincent. I think we have a good YouTube channel as well. This connects with people on the heart level. And so many people say, man, I've been wanting to get into real estate, or I'm looking for a new way to do real estate. I'll give you an example. I had an agent, he's been around for 20 years, and he said he got bored after 20 years. He goes, I found my vigor by having a purpose. Back to that niche conversation where you started, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, this has purpose. To be happy, we need to be contributors for a lot of people. The contribution, we have that F word called fulfillment with this as well. And I think if that speaks to you on more than just a transactional level, that senior living might be your friend for the next 2 decades.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think there's a lot of people that, I would say that real estate's relatively male dominant, right? And I think that's because it's so transactional. Whereas I see some women that get into real estate that do really well because they have that empathetic side to them. And so whether male or female doesn't matter. But I think that for the people that do have that empathetic side, that want to serve, that want to have more meaning in their business as opposed to just purely transactional, I agree. This is a fantastic way to go.
I would say females have the advantage here because of that. You were dead on, Mark.
Yep. Yeah. I have a coaching student that's a lady. And I said, you have no idea the advantage you have. I said, when a guy walks into the house, we are immediately pigeonholed as being ready to take advantage of them. I said, whereas a woman that shows up, I said, they can have that empathetic ear and it immediately shows. It's something that we can't compete with. So I think that females have an advantage there that they don't realize.
Agreed.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Phillip, thank you so much. Your wealth of knowledge, and like I learned a ton of stuff. I got a page full of notes. So thank you personally for it. But yeah, thanks for sharing. And guys, listeners, check Phillip out, momshouse.com. Check out his YouTube channel. Tons of good information there, and such a enormous opportunity.
Thank you for having me on your show today.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
This episode is over, but we're not done here. For tons more actionable advice, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Ready to get help from Mark directly? Visit marklaneeducation.com to schedule a consultation and kickstart your lead generation strategies right away. We'll see you next time on More Leads, More Deals, More Profits with Mark Lane.